how, I guess the question I have for you is how what we've been doing the last few days with the wise woman stuff combined with the stuff that Amy's been doing a lot of with the service and being the captain of the ship and all that, how is that starting to weave within you to change you? Yeah.
And just very helpful this morning with what I was feeling, and then sharing that with you, and then just really staying with the feeling. And parts of me wanted to think, it was like, no, stop. And I just kind of dropped into all of this emotion, like really emotional. It felt like the masculine coming off the battlefield and just being desolation and just heartbreak, and then just this coming home to like the wife and saying, come here, my love, and just crying into the feminine, and that kind of feminine, like just really like encapsulating,
loving and nurturing the
it was I could really just feel those parts in me, and that was instead of it being the harsh masculine and that silly weak feminine, it was like the strength in both of them, particularly the feminine just coming in and nurturing. So it was.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's you starting to get the masculine feminine working better within you and starting to see the value of that kind of mother energy that we talked about yesterday. Because maybe you have some weird association with it being, the wife in the kitchen or the weak thing or whatever, but the mother energy is like such an intrinsic part of creation, of human society. I mean, mothers are the ones who birth and raise the next generation. That's kind of a big deal. So
I think it's one of the most important jobs in the world.
Yeah,
and I think teaching is really important.
Yeah.
I think mothering is, but I just haven't wanted it.
Yeah.
This life, it just wouldn't.
Yeah, and there could be all sorts of reasons for that, which you don't need to know. Yeah. But as long as you're starting to heal, and that's the thing, like the masculine aspect in you is so useful for the get up and go, the no bullshit, the boundaries, the protection, the keep powering through, and that sense of strength and directness and practicality, But that feminine is so important. Like I said yesterday, the masculine keeps the bad and keeps the good out and protects the home and provides structure and direction and all that. But without that feminine, it's an empty home. And the feminine is the one that fills the inside with that warmth and the nurture and the compassion and the communication and the relationships. And you got to have that in your own home, inner home, and how you work with that. And that's where that really nurturing, healing, come here can be so really helpful when you've gone through hell, or there's been a battle in some form or another, or you've really just been going through a hard time, to kind of allow yourself to love yourself in that way. Because it's just another way to love yourself.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different flavors you can bring to yourself in how you love yourself. So sometimes you need that mothering, nurturing, facilitating, like a lot of families, the mother's often the one that translates and mediates between the different members of the families, like, you go tell your dad this, and then you go tell the other kid this, and you tell them, and and you go, well, they're feeling this, and then, well, then maybe you should try this, and they're doing that, and you're trying to get everyone to kind of talk to each other eventually, and so there's all these funny dynamics that can be in the mix, and because a lot of the mother archetypes is that the relationship thing. It's very relationship oriented, and it is generous, and she's giving, and she's all of that. And then the father energy is much more providing the discipline. We talked a lot about discipline, so you need to be comfortable with that father energy in yourself, because you need that discipline. You need to keep yourself on a straight and narrow. You need to say no to the bullshit. So they're so both important, but you can't just run on one all the time. The same with the hunter and the huntress, They're both kind of a bit more similar. They're both fiercely independent. The hunter tends to be much more yeah, I guess at that stage you're not as differentiated, but the hunter tends to be much more, almost a bit aggressive with his like going to find his place in the world and find what he's looking for and get it back. And there's a real, you know, it can be a bit territorial when it's out of balance, but very much, you know, making his place in the world. And there's a lot of going and doing, and still a lot of self-discovery as well. And trying to prove himself is a big part with the hunter. And the huntress is less interested in proving herself. She's doing the same in trying to find her place in the world, but she's also trying to find herself in a way that the hunter doesn't as much. It's an interesting thing with the masculine and feminine archetypes there, in that, you know, a girl, because, you know, a female, a girl, a woman will have, just because of how the design is. And I don't care all this woke stuff that goes on these days. It's like there is the biology of a female body versus a male body. Sometimes it's true. You have souls that are in male body that are more female, and vice versa, and that happens. They are, you know, the more you evolve and balance things up within yourself, the more there's a balance of masculine, feminine within you. Doesn't mean that you're anything else and whatever you're born into, but, you know, but there is a design, like the rays, the source then divides itself into the various rays, and they're all different aspects of source, and all of them are different qualities and feelings, and all of them are, like I was saying the other day, the different subjects in the curriculum of source. But it's also because all the rays then, when you differentiate them, they can interact with each other in a whole different way that you can't when it's all just one thing. And out of this, these amazing creations can come. What happens when this strand and this strand weave together and start to create things together? Ooh, how about if we add this one in? Ooh, you know, it's like, wow, these all things. When you divide things, then you can get them to relate and interact with each other in so many, like, you know, commutations and permutations. And so, wow, yeah, it's so interesting. And it's, the masculine feminine is just an aspect of this, first ray, second ray, and then, you know, creating the third ray, that intelligence stuff, and it's that interaction between masculine and feminine, and what they each bring is part of creating things and experimenting and finding new balances and new expressions and new experiences. And so, yeah, the hunter, it's very much the hunter and huntress. They're both in the journey of finding themselves, finding their place in the world, but there is a difference in the design between the masculine and feminine expressions of them, in that the huntress, she will try to find her place in the world, but it's very much in preparation for going within the mother, hence why there's such a big focus on relationships. And part of that is trying to find who she is as part of her network of relationships. Where the hunter, archetypally, would be much more find his place in the world in terms of his work, his status, his role within the social society, the social hierarchy. So there's a different focus that's much more about the work, the activity, the place in the tribe, where the huntress will be much more about finding her place in her constellation of relationship, the social network of relationships. And then within that, you know, there's a place in society within that. And that's just part of the design. That doesn't mean that women can't work hard at finding the career that they want to dedicate themselves to, or that men can't find the right person to share their life with or create a network of relationships, of course. But archetypally, and in terms of the energy of things, this is what they are. And we all have masculine and feminine within us. And the young men that are really like boy men, you know, boy kind of thing, won't be as interested in relationships. They won't. They're interested in going out there, having fun. Yeah, they have mates because they need the other hunters around them. But, you know, it's much more about like making their place in the world, making a name for themselves. Where the young women, especially when they're really feminine, will tend to be much more interested in relationships. Their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their family, you know, finding a mate to have a family, all these things. And then depending how balanced you are more towards the masculine or feminine, you'll tend to play various degrees of one or the other or both. So then you have the mother, the father, that those roles, again, they overlap. They both care for more than themselves. You know, the mother and father, there's a responsibility to others. to both of those stages of life, regardless of the gender, but how it expresses is different. But then we have both within us. It's like the yin yang, you know, you have the masculine, feminine, and it's the dot of the other one in the other, and it's all interlaced and interwoven. But you can run harder on one or the other, sometimes out of necessity. You need sometimes more of that masculine, more of the father, and sometimes you need more of the mother. And having the wisdom and also the adaptability to be able to move within both is going to help your mastery. It's going to help in your relationship with yourself. And then the wise woman, the wise man, again, they're both in their own way still giving to society, but they're to some degree a bit more outside. They have to kind of step out of being in the center of this network of relationships, the center of the stage, the center of the action, because in order for them to become the wise one, they have to start to cross the boundaries with the unseen, cross the boundaries with the other world. To some degree, they have to leave part of worldly things behind, part of the worldly things in their life behind, whether it's their money or, you know, physical owned things like belongings, whether it is being in a role that's really central and active in the middle of the community, whether it is leaving certain relationships behind, whether it is leaving your good looks or your physical strength behind, because their role becomes like bridging the spiritual and the worldly. And so they're still part of the community, but they're more in that kind of overlighting guidance, and then also supporting those whose time it is to then climb center stage. And both of them then, you know, have to go through this process where from so much of doing in a way that there is in the mother and the father, because there's so much like relating and giving and protecting and nurturing and guiding and caring and fighting off and saying no, and there's a lot of managing things around yourself. With the wise man, the wise woman, there's a coming back into yourself, digesting your experience, turning it into wisdom, learning the lessons, and then using and also tuning in, like we've been practicing with the wise woman's way, and you know, that receptive thing. Whether you're a wise man or a wise woman, you need to learn to listen, to observe, to be receptive, to feel, to know, because that's just how it works in a second-ray universe. So they need to do this. It's shift into this different role where you much more bridge that still inner space that then bridges into the other world, and then brings the wisdom of that through the lens of your gathered experience to bring that to the community, which makes then hopefully the next generation better because they're building on your wisdom and your experience. And that's how it's supposed to work. But of course, you know, that's all just gone out the window, and we worship youth. The hunter and the huntress are the stars at the moment, and mother, father are respected and they're useful because we need them. Anything old, it's like, so we need to balance all of that within ourselves as well. Yet, at the same time, regardless of the phase of life that you're in the human creature, all three are always there within you, on the feminine and on the masculine side. And the six of them need to interact, balance. Sometimes you'll need one more than the other, and it's just different flavors of love, different flavors of expression that you can pull on. They're just different aspects of your energy. And sometimes your bullshit comes up, you need the father. Keep the bad out, keep the good in. Keep yourself on track. No, this is what we're doing. Discipline, structure, bang. Sometimes you need the mother. Hey, really wounded, really bruised here, exhausted, filled with that nurturance and that care, that warmth. You know, sometimes you've gone through a shock or a trauma, and there's this kind of, you know, trauma can make you feel sometimes like you've just been hit and something's kind of shattered and a bit broken, and you're left a bit like reeling, and things are kind of not really gelling or flowing. It's a bit like, whoa, like that. Well, she can kind of bring the pieces back together and help put things back together in a way that you need to heal. So then you can cry with her and you love yourself while you know, like you were doing. And sometimes you need the huntress, you know, or the hunter that's gonna be out there and just not be caught up in relationships too much, because it's still very much about self-discovery and going into the unknown and finding your place in yourself, finding your place in the world, finding yourself in the universe, finding your place within the network of relationship that you're a part of. And that's necessary at different times of the process, because we need to constantly change and update our place in everything. Because as we change and we awaken and we make changes in how we are and who we are, and we remember certain things about where we're from and where we're going, then you need to kind of reassess and become the seeker again, and find your place again within your own flow, within your own sense of self, within all sorts of things. And then of course also regularly we need to just, like we did a bit yesterday with the womb of the goddess and the winter energies, to kind of gather up all the wisdom and kind of go within and be still, and just put that foot in the other dimension, in the formless, in the non-TikTok, the non-linear, and just to kind of let all that digest and become the wise man, become the wise woman. And you know, where the hunter and the huntress were more similar, it becomes a bit more different with mother and father. In some ways the wise man and wise woman become more similar, but still, you know, the wise men are more still kind of concerned with decision making, and the woman, there's still the mysteries of life and death and healing, birth and all that stuff is still very much associated with the feminine. Where, you know, the wise man masculine, it's about guiding almost like the political decisions of the tribe, even though both the Council of Women and the Council of Men have a say in the decisions, the political decisions, of the directional decisions of the tribe, but there's a bit of a different flavor with them, where, you know, the women come very much from that kind of more mystical, goddessy, I guess, kind of guidance, and the wise man comes more from that occultist, I guess you could say, form of wisdom. And they overlap, of course, and you need both. So, you know, in some ways, like, we have those phases of our lives where in the biological human, because there's the passage of linear time on some level, and we have those phases, and we each in different phases, but all three of those phases repeat very, very regularly. Every time we go through a cycle of rebirth, change, growth, letting go, death, going in the in-between, rebirth, and, you know, we go through these cycles of growth and change where something passes away, and then we have an in-between where, well, we feel like we don't know where we're at, and it's we're confused, and it's like what was there is gone, and what's coming next hasn't landed yet, and then we go into the new phase, and being the seeker, being the huntress, the hunter, and then letting that mature. And as we start to find our place, then we spread our influence and be the mother, be the father in this phase of our growth, in this new stage of evolution. And then we start the time to really, we feel like it's starting to wind down, that particular cycle and phase. And so we gather up the learnings and wisdom from that particular cycle, and hopefully then become wiser as a result, and use that to then inform our decisions and guide ourselves better. And then we start all over again. To some degree that can happen each year as we go through the cycles of the season, and with Wesak and all of that, because each year is its own cycle of growth and evolution. And, you know, there's all sorts of lengths of cycles and biorhythms of evolution depending how fast you're progressing. It might be a weekly one, it could be a daily one, it could be every few months, so every few years there's like these big arcs, and depending what you're going through. Some journeys of growth, you go through a particular process that can span several years. Other things are just over a few months, you're going through a process of beginning, transforming, growing into it, integrating, gathering the wisdom, and then it's all just like going back again to, okay, now I'm ready to move on again, to change again. You're not deleting what was before, you're not forgetting about it, you're building on it. But those cycles are constantly running, because it's just how life is designed. It just all goes through cycles. Beginning, development, growth, ending, recycle, build on it for the next cycle. Incarnation, same. Reincarnation, every life we do the same. And, you know, there's the same happening on a planetary level. Every nation, every civilization, every culture goes through cycles like this. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. And you're hoping that every time that an empire rises, grows and falls, or that other empires learn from it. You hope. It's just the cycles of life. It happens on every level, collectively and individually. Solar system, same. And so on and so forth. So how can we work better with all that? Masculine, feminine is just part of the balancing of all that, and we don't have time today to work with the race, but I guess I could do that on Saturday. But I mean, the rays are always there. You know how to work with them. You know what they are, and it's part of that, balancing all these different energies and aspects. But using those archetypes, the hunter, the huntress, the mother, the father, the wise man, the wise woman, can be helpful, because you need all these aspects. They're just all different aspects of expression of love, if you express them correctly. Because we know the huntress and the hunter can both be very self-absorbed and selfish and petulant and, not always respectful of the boundaries of others. The exuberance of youth, where you think you know everything when you're like 16 or 18, and you think, you have the kind of self-righteous superiority because you have these hormones pumping in your body to make you feel like you can conquer the world. But that's part of how nature makes it too, because that's how that stage needs to be. Because that's how you have a go, sometimes foolhardy, but you may be foolhardy, but at least you're having a go and you're taking risks that an older person may not take, because nature pushes you. You're the new generation. So nature pushes you to kind of break the boxes and go outside the bounds and explore new horizons and try new things, and some of it will work and some of it will be fucking great mistakes, but at least you're out there having a go, and you need a certain amount of confidence for that to be the case. Where then things evolve and each phase has its own lessons. So sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need to kind of be the more responsible one that just keep things going and protects what's there and nurtures what's there and really manages all the various relationships and logistics and things that need to be managed in a particular stage. And at the other time, you need to kind of drop things, withdraw, and come back to the stillness. And you need to really look within yourself and integrate your learnings and really just allow yourself to go through a different kind of transformation that comes with the wise one. And you need to know, to be able to feel your way through how you can interact in your relationship with yourself on the human level, as a soul, with spirit in the different ways where you can pull on all these tools to serve yourself. What would love do now? Well, love right now love is encouraging you to just go on an adventure and step into the unknown and just, have courage and be a seeker. Well, draw on that. Be the huntress, be the hunter, whatever you need to be. Right now, the love guides me to just be reliable and responsible and manage this project and make sure that it gets done right and that this task is taken to completion. Well, you'll need the mother and the father a lot for that. You still need a bit of the other ones too, because there are all sorts of tools. But the mother, the father, they bring those energies through, and they can really help you keep the bad out, keep the good in, nurture, feed the stuff you're growing, and the mother's really good with all the managing of the day-to-day logistical stuff. That's very much a mother thing, and so on and so forth. So they're just energies you can draw on, and perhaps let's feel into that Let's feel into each of them, because it's not about a construct or a definition of each of them. You've got to be able to feel those aspects within yourself, and how easily you can feel all of them will also show you where you're out of balance, just like when we work with the elements. So let's start, and regardless of your gender, both the feminine and masculine will be there. Now, of course, one gender tends to be a little bit stronger in you, based usually on your biological gender, but not necessarily. It's got to do a lot with the polarity of your chakras, plus what you're comfortable with. Some of you have been a certain gender for a lot of lives, and it's the first time you find yourself in the body of a different gender, and well, there's a reason for that. Nature hasn't made a mistake, it's because you need to balance things out. So let's feel into the Huntress. So it's the sort of Artemis, Diana type energy. She's wild, she's independent, she doesn't belong to any man, she's free. She's the maiden too, you know, there's that innocence, purity, that young girl kind of energy. And that's, you know, it's the maiden, the Huntress. The maiden is the younger version of the Huntress, but the maiden's important too, you know, it's that purity of the innocent feminine. There's an innocence of joy there. And that can be very important, and to protect that as well, you know, it's important to keep that purity alive in your heart. So the maiden, she's more like the flower girl, the Flora, the Persephone before she's taken to hell. Kind of naive or so, but you know, we want to tune into the healthy expression of those archetypes. There's a lot of work you can do with these archetypes, like you can with any archetypes, but we want to feel the healthy energies of these flavors in us. The maiden and the Huntress. Very much standing on their own feet, discovering the world full of wonder, full of hope, full of innocence and purity. The Huntress is a bit stronger, more, okay, I want to go and find my own place and my own relationships. And there is a fierce independence in there with the Huntress. The maiden is much more open to the relationship aspects, but she still doesn't really belong to anyone. She's not as embedded in relationships as the mother will be later on. There's no real responsibility, there's real freedom at that level. But that feminine quality is in there. Feminine seeking her path, her way, her place where she can be the love and wisdom, eventually grow into herself as the love and wisdom in the mix. So that's refining, seeking, looking, hunting, wandering, playing to try to find it. And the Huntress balances out the maiden. She kind of, you know, protects a bit the maiden's innocence. There's something really soft and pure and gentle there in both of them, but the Huntress has got a bit more of a strength in there too. That's when she breaks away from childhood, bridges towards womanhood, and so she's kind of has that strength she needs to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. Her heart belongs to no one yet, but she's looking for a place where she can place it. And then with the masculine we have the boy and the hunter. So the same in the boy, there is a wonder and an innocence there, just like in the maiden. But already the boy is much more turned outwards. Was already where the girl is, wow, you know, life and loving and trying to find the people, find her tribe. He's already much more interested in the world around him, the places and the things he can build and play with and hunt. And he's the conqueror. Then we have the hunter, the conqueror. He also seeks, very up and goes, feeling in some ways like a bit more dynamic and strong than the maiden and the Huntress. The Huntress looks in different ways to the hunter. More being, more tuning, more feeling her way with her, more doing with him. And both are useful. The skill that he's learning will help him be the father, the protector that he needs to be. But for now, he's just looking, seeking for his place, practicing, pushing through, conquering new horizons, trying things out. Avid for the world. Again, a bit more strategical and occultist in his approach than the maiden and the huntress, which are a bit more mystical in their approach. And both are useful. And let's feel into now the mother. Mother and matriarch. For each of those stages, there's also like a more, I guess, softer expression and a bit of a firmer expression. So you have the maiden and the huntress, the boy and the hunter. Then we have the mother and the matriarch, the father and the patriarch. One's a bit more second ray, one's a bit more first ray. Again, like yin yang, it's all interlocking. So the mother, loving, nurturing, caring, warm, nurturing all the relationships, nourishing, comforting. And sometimes you just need her, whether it's for someone else, for the planet, for yourself. Sometimes you just need her. And sometimes it's that flavor of love that you need. You gotta be okay with that, and you gotta be okay to give yourself that when you need it. Don't let it go into, oh, poor Papa, Mommy, and baby in Mommy's arms. It's not about self-pity, it's not about babying yourself. It's still got to be quite grown up, and perhaps a bit of balancing the mother and the matriarch might be useful sometimes for you, because the matriarch's a bit more an authority figure. She's still the mother, she still holds the inside of the home. She still deals with all the relationships and the diplomacy and all that, but bit more in a ruler kind of expression. And sometimes a blend of the mother and the matriarch can be really helpful, so you can really nurture and love yourself, but keep it on track, keep it strong. It's not about indulging self-pity and looking for warm and fuzzies. It's a balance. But the matriarch, it's not like horrible matriarch. She's radiant, and she is loving. But she's powerfully loving. She keeps the house in order. She's benevolent in her higher expression, and that's what we want to feel here. But she's in charge. She rules the roost, as they say, of the inside, the logistics, the relationship, the communication, all that stuff in your relationship with yourself. And then we have the father and the patriarch. So the same, father's a bit more of a softer, perhaps secondary oriented expression. Patriarch's a bit firmer, more first rate flavor. They overlap, there's like a gradient. So the father, loving, benevolent father, he protects, he keeps the bad out. He is responsible and reliable. He makes sure while the mother runs everything within the home, he makes sure that anything that needs to come in the home for her to run things properly is there. He provides. And the patriarch does the same, but keep things in order too, is a little bit more firm. He's the ruler of the roost. He provides the overall direction, the structure, the discipline, dishes out consequences when there's misbehavior, but still loving. It's not an abusive thing. It's authoritarian, benevolent authority of structure and discipline and protection. It teaches causes and consequences. And some of you are not comfortable with that. And you need to learn to be, because sometimes that's the flavor of love you need. The father can help you feel safe. The patriarch can keep you on track. And then we can fill into the wise woman and the crone. So again, the wise woman's kind of more the second ray thing. The crone is more the first ray, a bit firmer. So this is, again, we're a bit more of a independent, but focused much more within, much more mature than the maiden and the huntress. Because there's a lot of gathered experience turned into wisdom, introspection, self-reflection, a lot of listening, a lot of receiving, a lot of observing, a lot of coming to more humility, where the maiden certainly was not. More respect for the greater picture of things, or more measured, and to be okay to not be center stage of everything. If needed be, sure, can step center stage and make decisions for the tribe, but also not needing to. Respecting the time and the timing of everyone and everything. The crone tends to be even more like all the worldly. She really has her foot in both worlds. Much more the unseen, the mysterious associated with her, and much less bothered about pleasing and being nice. Just happy to be, both the wise woman and the crone, happy to be authentic, true to themselves, because they've done the work to come into that sense of finding themselves, gathering their wisdom, dropping the masks and the veils, and come back to a sense of authenticity of self, of truth, and to be okay to stand for that and not compromise to please, like sometimes the mother, the father, or even the maiden and the huntress and the hunter could do, because so invested in finding a place in the world of relating and the people. At that wise woman, wise man phase, that goes away. But very also with feeling that kind of, unseen magic, healing, birthing, dying, tapping into these wise women's mysteries that we've been working on the last few days. Life and death, the nature of things. To be okay to feel that within you. Balancing all of the various expressions. They're all just different tools, different ways to relate with yourself, to look after yourself, to love yourself, and to be in the world in order to serve the love. And let's call now the wise man. The sage is another name we find for him. The shaman. So the same. He doesn't need to be the strong hunter. He allows younger men and fathers to do more of the protecting, but he still protects in a different way, with wisdom, with discernment, with wise counsel. Reason, but there's a lot of intuitive aspects in the wise woman. There's much more that kind of illuminated reason, illuminated mind in the wise man, in the sage. The planning, the seeing ahead, the potential consequences of choices now. Reflecting. Again, he doesn't need to be the star of the show anymore. He just is coming also to a place of more humility and maturity. And he's giving back, caring like the father did, but in a different way. Again, breaching into something more unseen of value for the tribe, for the village, for the family. He knows when to give others space to make mistakes and when to step in, as does the wise woman. And that's that shaman too. And it's not really about being shamanic or in shamanic tradition. I just don't know that there's another word for the equivalent of the crone. You know, again, he can be even more the worldly, and one of the ways is for him to learn some of the earth mysteries, some of the goddess mysteries, simply but because that's how it works in the secondary universe. But there's also the magic of the occultist in there, which is a bit more mental plane stuff, the understanding of why things are the way they are and how they work. In a way where the wise woman's magic is much more intuitive and mystical. It's a different angle, and both of them are useful, and you need to be able to draw on both of them and to be comfortable with both of them, balancing out relatively well. So we have the wise man, sage, shaman, the wise woman, crone, balancing, occultist and mystic, masculine, feminine. They can both work together, they don't have to clash. This can enrich each other. inform each other. And then we have the mother matriarch, father patriarch. And they're a good team. You need both. They work as a team, each with a particular complementary role, each with a different flavor of love, which is so important in your inner parenting. One cannot fully do their job well without the other. So let's allow them to balance out, to come together, to team up in yourself, along with the wise man and the wise woman. Then the hunter and the huntress, the boy and the maiden. Inner and outer relationships and doing things, both important. Finding a place in the world, doing something worthwhile with our activity, understanding the world around us is important, but so is relationships. Everything's about relationships. Anything we exist with, we have a relationship with. Hunter and huntress, the boy and the maiden, both different flavors of innocence and purity and wonder and searching and seeking, finding a place, independence, both different approaches to being a seeker. One a bit more mystical, one a bit more occultist. One a bit more emotional, feeling-based, one a bit more mental. And they gotta work together, heart and mind working together. Boy, maiden, hunter, huntress, mother, father, wise man, wise woman. Let's just allow them all to balance out, come together. They're all a team, they're all tools in your toolkit. They all can support your relationship with yourself, your inner coaching, your inner parenting, your inner guiding, your inner seeking, your outer seeking. Balancing feminine, masculine in all these various expressions. Sometimes you'll need some more than others. You need to be able to fluidly draw on any of them without hang-ups, without judgments, without fear. They're all a part of you. They're all a part of this universe. Part of the dynamics. Grounding, aligned and centered. Coming together. Like the yin and yang. Multiple yin and yang, holding hands, one team.